Damn.
MC, make another hit.
Whoa. This ain't what you want.
Project.
This ain't what you want. This ain't what you want.
Welcome to another episode, another podcast of yours truly. I know what you're thinking, not again, but this time there's a reason for this. So it's been a while before I do this version of a podcast episode. I've been spending time doing maybe some reels, putting together some reels on Instagram and TikTok. Haven't really got to sit down here and set this up to do a video, but I just wanted to do one to get it out there that we always say, wow, time flies. We're always saying, especially if you're an adult, you have kids, time flies. But believe it or not, it's been 1 year since I started this thing. It's been 1 year since I did my first podcast type of recording that I put out there, because it was the day after the 49ers, the day of, it was the Super Bowl that the 49ers lost. It was that night that I needed to blow off some steam and I needed to talk about it, because that was a devastating loss. That was tough. And I remember around the time I did not have anything ready or set up to do it. It was the idea. I knew I was going to do it. I did not have this mic. I did not have the proper equipment yet. I had some stuff, just enough to start doing some kind of a recording. And that loss was so devastating that I just started it with what I had. I just started it, and that's, if you scroll through my videos and see the first one, it was about the Super Bowl, about the 49ers losing that Super Bowl. So I do want to talk about a few things, maybe break it up into three different things I want to talk about. First one is going to be sports, and this 1 year, I guess you could say, anniversary of Anything Goes. Then I want to talk about some miscellaneous stuff that has to do with, you guessed it, politics. But I don't consider it much politics as it is kind of world events, important events that are going on, and give my 2 cents on those. And lastly, just where this channel or this plan of mine, this idea of mine is going to, if it's going to get buried or if it's going to continue moving forward. So I'll let you know in a bit. So I never really considered this podcast page to take off until I started interviewing people. And I wanted to have physical sit downs, but that's a little bit more difficult than I thought. I do have one already planned out, but I think it would be easier to just send a Zoom link and get on a phone call to discuss it. So I have a couple people in mind. I want to talk sports with several people. I've already reached out to Itai, and he's agreed to talk about sports. Me and Enoch talk about a plethora of things that have to do with politics. So any conversation there would be entertaining to say the least. But since the Super Bowl was a 1 year anniversary that I began or started doing this, mind you, I still feel I was not prepared at all. Not that I am prepared right now, but I do feel I'm a little bit better than how I was when I began. But Chiefs, talk about the Chiefs for a little bit. I'm glad that the whole world, the whole NFL world or the sports world has seen with their eyes, thanks to social media, the advantage that the Chiefs have gotten with the officiating. It's something that I saw in the Super Bowl in the 2019-2020 season, when the 49ers were up 20-10 with like 8-7 minutes left, I think even less. They should have been ahead by more in that game. They were the better team in that game until the last 5 minutes. There was several calls, especially the holding. And if you look at that third down, I don't know if I'll play the clip, but the third down that started the comeback, the 3rd and 17 pass to Tyreek Hill, Bosa was held the whole way. And when you look at the stats of, they get called for the most holds in the regular season, and in 3 Super Bowls, they were not called for a single hold. Come on. It's more than obvious. So 2 years ago when they faced the Eagles, I thought the Eagles were going to win. They were the better team, but that Hurts fumble return for the touchdown by the Chiefs, I was like, uh-oh, they might be in trouble. And then at the end of the game, towards the end, they rush Patrick Mahomes. It's tied at 35. They rush Patrick Mahomes. They get to him. He just throws it over the end zone on third down, and they call that holding. The most ticky-tack holding call you will ever see, and it was to decide the Super Bowl. So if they don't call that how they shouldn't have, Chiefs kick a field goal. The Eagles get the ball back with about a minute and 40. I'm not sure how many timeouts they had. I want to say 2, maybe 1. But even that. So you give the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, a chance to come down the field, either tie it with the field goal, go into overtime, or win it with a touchdown. Instead, you call the hold. Because when he flailed his arms chasing them behind the line of scrimmage, he pulled on his jersey for a split second. That had nothing to do with his route. It didn't impede him at all. Ball was overthrown. It was a not catchable ball. And right away you see Mahomes in the floor pointing, and they use that clip of him like when they're doing intros to Chiefs games, when he's pointing on the floor, and as he's getting up, he's still pointing like if he's the one that's making the decision on what the flag should be. When I saw that, I lost like probably half of my fanhood, my belief in the NFL and that it's not rigged. That play on it took me down. And I don't want to be into it. I don't want to believe anymore. But then the next year, the 49ers are really good. That was a year, though. No, that same year, the Niners were good because they should have been in the Super Bowl, but Purdy tore his elbow in the NFC Championship game. They would have beat the Eagles. They would have beat the Chiefs. That Chiefs team had a good offense, but they did not have a good defense. So the next year, the Niners come with the vengeance. They are truly the best team, offense and defense, especially the offense. But then this year, for some reason, the Chiefs have an even better defense that's carrying them. So, the Super Bowl happens, and my prediction, whole thing with the Super Bowl was score more than 20 points, and you're going to win the game if you're the 49ers. Because all of their losses, the 3 losses that they had that year, they scored under 20 points. And all the teams that beat the Chiefs scored 20 or more. So that was like the perfect formula for both ends. And what did the Niners score in regulation? 19. If they had that 20, maybe they win 20-19. But me and my wife got so invested in that team, last year's team, the team that lost the Super Bowl to the Chiefs. Even following them on social media, their significant others. We were just so into it every week. And McCaffrey was the best running back, and Kittle and Purdy were just so unstoppable. It would be harder to lose a Super Bowl than to win it at that point, or that's how it felt. But anything could happen. McCaffrey fumbles on a promising drive. They were in field goal range. And all the other things that happened, but I'm glad the world got to see the holding in that game that they did not call. But I always say this, that's not the reason why they lost. Because they had their chances to win that game. And I know I'm talking about a game a year ago. But that's a part of it that connects to the 1 year that I've been doing this, because it's because of that. It's because of that game that pushed me to start this. So this year I did not have much faith, and given all the injuries that was going on, I didn't think they had it in them, because they were finding ways to lose games instead of winning games. But next year, they have that defensive coordinator when they have the best defense. He's back, Robert Saleh, and the Super Bowl is in San Francisco or Santa Clara. That is Super Bowl 60, which it makes exactly 30 years since they last won the Super Bowl. They won Super Bowl 29 in 1995, and now we're in 2025. I remember that game like it was yesterday. Never in my wildest imagination, in my wildest dreams, would I have thought that, oh, the next time they win the Super Bowl, I'm going to be married with like 3 kids. They've come really close to being similar to the Four Falls of Buffalo, because in 12 years, they lost 3 Super Bowls. What other team, maybe besides the Patriots and the Chiefs, have gone to that many Super Bowls in that short of a time? You would think they would have won one. Them not being able to finish, I think, also is credited to the NFL being rigged. And now it's as clear as day that it's rigged. Even to the point where the NFL officiating crew released a statement before the Super Bowl saying it's insulting to them that they would favor a team or fix games. Insulting to them. It's not insulting to us, the viewers, the fans that could see it clearly with our own eyes. Get out of here, man. Give me a break. So we will see the 49ers in Santa Clara for Super Bowl 60. If they make it to the Super Bowl, they're winning it. That's all I got to say about that. And yeah, sure, there's been consolation prizes throughout the years. Beating the Packers, beating the Cowboys. The Cowboys' best team. Okay, so these are 2 of the Cowboys' best teams, and I bring them up because every Cowboy fan hates the 49ers and vice versa. Somewhat. Maybe 90% of that statement is true. I despise the Cowboys. I've always hated the Cowboys. I'm never going to shy down from that. But the year that they had Tony Romo, where they went, I think, 13-3, where they lost to the Giants at home to Eli Manning, that Cowboys team was stacked, offense and defense. They should have won the Super Bowl that year. 2009, 8, not sure. And a couple years ago, where that tight game, Dak Prescott against Brock Purdy in San Francisco, where it was like 18-12 or something. That Cowboys team was probably the best team that I've seen past 20 years or so. So those 2 years, if you're a Cowboys fan, man, those were your chances. But couldn't be more happier that the 49ers have been beating the Cowboys and been knocking them out of the playoffs. So it is a bit of a consolation prize. But on the flip side, all the Cowboy fans have to hang their head on is, oh, you guys haven't won it since before us, or 30 years. But there's levels to this, like the Cowboys haven't even sniffed a Super Bowl game. NFC Championship, only I believe in the last 30 years, they've won the first playoff game maybe 3 different times. One against the Eagles, one against the Bucks. Forgot the second one. But no, it's not the same. And the Super Bowl trophy, you don't get a trophy for making it to the Super Bowl. Actually, you do. You get the NFC Championship trophy that nobody cares about, but it's still more hardware that they've been able to get. So I think that's going to wrap up my football Super Bowl talk for this podcast. Just one thing that I kind of felt that I saw others say is the Chiefs winning so many close games this year against, mediocre teams. Some felt that eventually the wheels were going to fall off. The bottom was going to fall out and they were going to get spanked. Some thought it was going to happen against the Texans. The Texans played a good game, but they beat the Texans and they beat the Bills. And they beat the Bills, or they won those 2 games where they should have lost if you look at the stats. Like the Bills, no team had scored 4 touchdowns and 0 turnovers and lost a postseason game. I think the only other time was also the Bills against the Chiefs. Some crazy stat like that. So if you look at the stats, the Chiefs should have lost, but how do they still win? One thing is they're that good and well coached that they score when they have to and make a stop when they have to. But throw in there the officiating. Throw in there the penalty on 3rd down that gives them another chance, and they drive down the field. So that has got to do with it. Because looking at the stats, you're like, so where's the anomaly here? Where is that one thing what's that X factor that's kind of helping them when the stats say they should have lost this game? It's that 12th man factor that the Seahawks used for a few years. That's all I got to say about that. We'll see you in the Super Bowl, whoever goes up against the 49ers. Anywho. So I haven't done much about politics or any podcast since the one I said farewell to politics. Then I talked about politics. But it's very consuming. And it's even worse when it's the way that it has been this year. I knew coming into election year it was going to be like this. It was going to be a frenzy and a storm of social media content and people like him just making videos, reacting to the news. But some of these give information that you want to hear about in the news. But I have taken a step back from it somewhat because it feels it's kind of windless. But I do want to kind of spread some kind of awareness when it comes to that. And I think everybody should care about something that affects them or something negative that's going on into this country, into the country where they're at. So that frenzy picked up this year when Trump took office. And now it's worse than his first term because you also have another one like him dancing around on stage, making a fool of himself, just spewing fake news nonstop, fighting with people on Twitter like a belligerent little child, insulting people from Congress, decorated people. This guy's just getting into it with everybody, and he's going out there and saying some ridiculous stuff. But I wanted to show this little clip because this was a tactic that they had already thought of before. When the time comes, if they just do 20, 30 things a day, no matter how outrageous they are, they're not going to be able to be covered. And they're going to be able to get away with even more if they flood the zone. If they flood the zone and attack the news and attack with everything they're trying to do, it's going to be so much that they're not going to be able to concentrate. The news won't be able to cover it all. Check this out.
Flood the zone.
Hit, and keep it. It's momentum, because they're dumb and they're lazy. They can only focus on one thing at a time. All we have to do is flood the zone. Every day we hit them with 3 things. They'll bite on one and we'll get all of our stuff done. Bang, bang, bang. These guys will never be able to recover.
President Trump signs an executive order proclaiming February 9th as Gulf of America Day. Breaking, the White House is preparing an executive order to eliminate the Department of Education. Breaking, President Trump signs an executive order banning transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. President Donald Trump signs an executive order Monday to impose 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum. President Trump signs an executive order on Monday moving to reverse a federal push away from plastic straws, saying that paper straws don't work. It's President Trump's executive order aimed at ending birthright citizenship. You fucking tired yet? Because I'm motherfucking exhausted. That's the plan. In the short 3 weeks that he's been president, he's signed over 50 executive orders. That's because on top of him just being
crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious, crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious, crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious.
He's actually fucking weak. With all of these executive orders that he is signing, he wants to demonstrate that he has perceived power, not actual power. He just wants you to think that he has power. Because here's the real story that nobody's talking about. The overwhelming majority of Trump's executive actions and orders are illegal and unconstitutional.
February 10th.
They're being challenged through the courts
this
as
is already
arbitrary.
2 weeks old.
There is a law called the Administrative Procedure Resolved, with most decisions being handed down by the end of the...
Okay, you get the picture, right? So this whole tactic of flooding the zone with all this information and all this crazy stuff, all these executive orders, I was bombarded. I was swept away by it. I was like, oh, I'm going to make a reel on that one because this is what's really happening. They're saying this, but this is the truth. This is what they really found, but they're painting it like this. Then the next one will come on, and I'm like, forget it. I couldn't keep up. I don't have that kind of time. And also, obviously, having a third child. Now, sometimes the only time I have is like, do I spend time holding her and feeding her? or do I come and sit here? Obviously, I have not chosen to come and sit here because it's been, no, there's been no time. There's been no time for me to try to cover it in the way I would. If I didn't work and I could sit here throughout the day and go live and go over a lot of this stuff, I think it'll be a different story. This podcast itself would be a different story, but don't have that kind of time. Maybe someday. And I've learned a lot in this 1 year. One thing is, I troll a lot, especially with certain people who go back and forth about these subjects or about politics. But my whole idea of doing this podcast is when I talk about it, be as unbiased as I can be. It's not about hating a person or a political party. It's about putting the truth out there so you can see and know for yourself, because right now, social media, the news, everything, you cannot even tell what's propaganda anymore. It is completely mixed in. It's so convoluted that now it's difficult to find out the truth. It's difficult to find out the facts. It takes effort. It takes work to try to find out what's the truth. There's so much that I could say in regards to the Elon Musk and Doge takeover of the government and all the federal agencies. Some people are from afar, they're like, oh, well, they're saving the country a lot of money on wasteful spending. But do you really think that's true? He called Americans that get federal assistance, government assistance, parasites, when he's made his riches and his living off government contracts that he still has right now. And there's a video circulating before he kind of lost it, kind of like Kanye did, where he didn't have anything left for SpaceX. It was going to go under. And he received a phone call that NASA gave him a $1.5 billion contract. He said he shouted, he told them over the phone, I love you guys. And they told him, like, oh, they saved SpaceX, right? They saved your life. He's like, yeah, they saved you financially and emotionally. And Musk is with watery eyes saying, yes, completely different person than what he is now, what he is in social media. He takes ketamine, he overdoses, maybe not overdose, but he overdoes it on ketamine. That's why he starts acting so weird and cringy on stage. He's 53 and he's acting like he's like a young 20-year-old bro. He's trying so hard to do that. And unfortunately, people say, oh, he's a billionaire. He's a genius. Wow. He didn't invent SpaceX. He didn't invent Tesla. He bought them out. For anyone who thinks, this is the thing, for anyone who thinks that what Elon Musk is doing is good for the country, please look into it. Check the sources. Whatever they say he's doing, oh, he's putting it out there on tweets and he's screenshotting spreadsheets that they made up, that anybody could have done. Anything they don't like that the U.S. has funded, they call it fraud. It's not fraud just because you don't like where that money was going to. And all of this is less than 1% of our federal budget. And somehow we're supposed to believe that firing all these workers, thousands and thousands of workers that have very important roles in so many agencies, in the nuclear, in air traffic control, in maintaining national parks, veterans that have jobs helping out other veterans, we're supposed to think that that's great that they're getting fired. So people could think whatever the reason why he's doing all this. Trump gave him the keys to dismantle every federal agency. Why are they doing that? They claim they're saving the taxpayer money. How is that saving me any money? I still have to pay taxes. I'm still going to get taxed. How is that saving me something? That's not saving us anything. Then now the farmers that had these huge contracts that we're relying on, those fundings froze. So now you have a lot of farmers that are regretting their vote. And a lot of people have been regretting their vote. And the ones who don't, they just don't want to admit this is not what they voted for. They didn't vote for Elon to go in and rearrange every department that helps keep this country afloat. So my own assumption and my idea, and there's proof to this, of why they're trimming all the agencies down to, they're either erasing all these agencies or they're trimming them down to like 10-20% of what they were, because it's easier to control everything when they're that small. There's less that you have to deal with that'll rise up against you, against your agenda. I mean, the list goes on and on. They're banning news from certain news outlets from the White House from reporting because they don't want to use, those sources don't want to use Gulf of America. They're still going by Gulf of Mexico. So they're getting punished by taking away their free speech. And these are the people that advocate for the free speech. This is Elon Musk, who's bringing back all the free speech, but he brought back all the, all the extremists and all the Nazism back on Twitter. But yet when someone speaks up against him and his companies, or there's whistleblowers on what he was really doing to Tesla and to Twitter, he blocks them. So they're pretty much trying to consolidate power from all the branches of government. See, that's why we have 3 branches of government, because you don't want all the power to fall within one branch and they're going to dictate everything. This whole country was built on that not happening, on getting away from a king, getting away from one king, from a monarchy. That's why there's the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch. That's why if the president wants to do something, Congress has to get involved, and then there's a lot of people involved in there, the House and the Senate. If it gets taken up to the courts, the Supreme Courts, the local courts, they could decide, no, this is unconstitutional. And we've already seen Trump trying to do that, trying to take the birthright citizenship away that the Constitution gives everybody who's born in this country is a U.S. citizen. They already tried to do that. He already signed an executive order to take that away. So where's this respect for the Constitution? You're censoring news outlets. You're suing certain outlets because you didn't like how they reported against you. You're suing CBS or whoever it was because they edited the Kamala interview. Suing on what grounds? Because you didn't like it? Now that they released it, there was nothing. It just shows her like just cleaning her nose a lot, saying the same thing over and over. Not a plus, not a minus from what I saw, but they're suing because they didn't like that. And they're trying to cancel other networks and defund other news sources that are speaking against them. Even to this point, this guy, I think he's from, this politician, this congressman from California, I forgot his name. He called Elon Musk, because Elon Musk tweeted against him, calling him a DICK. So on air, he called Elon Musk a DICK. Now you have somebody from the Department of Justice in D.C. sending him a letter warning him that it was against the law to criticize Elon Musk. So you're literally, that's free speech. If you could criticize somebody, of course, presidents have always been criticized, have always been blamed for something. In case you didn't know that, if you're new to politics, that's always been a thing. Clinton was blamed for the crime wave in the 90s. Bush was blamed for the war, which obviously he, rightfully so, he purposely said that he was looking for weapons of mass destruction, but they just wanted the oil. Obama was blamed for a lot of aspects of the economy, the immigration, the deportation. So everybody's always blamed for something. It's nothing new. You don't have to defend them with your life. Like if they're your dad, like someone's talking bad about your dad. Anyway, and there's another executive order I want to touch on, and then that's it. And the reason I talk about politics, and if someone's going to hear it, I think it's important for them to hear it. I think you should know, regardless who you voted for, regardless what ideology you believe in. I think it's important to know these things. So I'm going to show this executive order. Then, if you've seen The Handmaid's Tale, which I barely started watching, a lot of this is starting to be a little bit creepy, what they're trying to do. some of us saw this coming. The ones that were very adamant and very scared about another Trump administration saw some of this coming. It wasn't going to be like the first one. He spent years, the years that Biden was president, he spent years building a political army that will do anything he says, that will break any law because he's going to be okay with it. And in return, they get seats. FBI director, Secretary of State, Secretary of National Defense, all these people that were vouching and protecting Trump all these 4 years since the insurrection, they were going to be rewarded by Trump. So maybe we are going into a downfall of this country, a dark period. I think we are. And that's why I've stepped back a bit, because I'm like, there's not much I could do about it. The best thing we could do about it, especially if you're from my community, my faith, is to pray for it, to pray for them. That's all we can do, aside from voting, of course. And I feel like it's been brought up in our sermons, I guess you could say, to pray for the leaders, to pray for the president and the administration, because there is something bad coming, because he is that much of a threat and a disaster. We've already seen how he's already poked Mexico and Canada, talked about owning the Panama Canal, owning Greenland, not getting along with our allies around the world. None of that is good. And I think when it comes to politics, very even smaller amount of us, including me, we're not that well versed on foreign policy. But all that has to do with our national security. Anyways, so I'm just going to show what the scariest one so far for me is on this executive order. And whether you voted for Trump or not, I don't care. But you should know this. And I think everybody should know this, not just if you voted for or against Trump. So check this out.
Thank you very much.
Lastly, we have another executive order that President Trump signed relating to independent agencies. This executive order would establish important oversight functions in the Office of Management and Budget and its subsidiary office, OIRA, supervising independent agencies and many of their actions, and also reestablishes the longstanding norm that only the President or the Attorney General can speak for the United States when stating an opinion as to what the law is.
Only the President and the White House could interpret what the law really is. Trying to take that away from the Supreme Court, from our courts. So here this guy is again, David Pacman, talking about this executive order.
Trump official announced yesterday that Donald Trump has signed an executive order claiming that only the president can speak for what the law is. This is not how the Constitution works, but this is the view of the Trump administration. And who's going to stop them? That's my question. That is not how the law works. That is not how the Constitution works. That is not how separations of powers work. That's not how anything works. But unless someone can stop them, then what can we do? And we are going to be doing a deeper dive.
I mean, here it is clear as day. It doesn't take a genius. I think we all learned this in school. United States Constitution. Legislative branch, executive, judicial. Crazy as it seems, that's how the nation's founders actually intended the system to work, because they didn't want any one part of the government to have too much power. To that end, they filled the U.S. Constitution with checks and balances that each branch could impose upon each others. The idea was that those three branches eventually would hammer out compromises that everybody could live with. The purpose of separation of powers is to prevent any one branch from becoming too powerful and to promote democracy. It's really not that hard. If I post a lot about this stuff and I overdo it and I overload, which I know I have, which is also why I step back from doing it as much, is because the importance of what's going on right now. It's happening like right in front of our face. You know, the whole DEI thing where they make it seem like if you're a person of color or if you're a woman, you were hired and you're unqualified, which is not true. And they're still blaming pilots and air traffic controllers when they've already come out and said there's no different type of qualifications that someone else has to go through. They don't lessen it for different types of people. So the whole DEI thing is another thing. It's just another term that they hijack from what I see it to excuse stereotyping, to excuse racism on certain people. What a coincidence. Oh, you have to be a male and you have to be white, then they were qualified. They went through the whole thing, right? But if they were a female, if they're a black person, a Latino, oh, what did they do? They went through some special program and initiative to help them just get in without the proper qualifications. Not true. There are programs that reach out to communities to get them to get interested so they can get involved because there's a shortage. For example, being an appraiser. I was an appraiser. It's still compromised predominantly white. Last year, during the Biden administration, they made a program to incentivize to reach out to other communities that are not just white to see if they are interested in this profession. And the tests don't change. You still need to have certain education. That's not going to change. The purpose is to reach out to others that are also qualified, that, you know, we're short-staffed here. Maybe this group of people, if they're informed, if they know about it, they would like to try to get involved in this. So again, if you've seen Handmaid's Tales, you know some of the signs of a government takeover, of a fascist takeover. Before we used to say it, like, oh, that's fascism, oh, that's racist, oh, that's Nazi, that's Hitler stuff. But when you got guys doing the Nazi salute, when you have Kanye West coming out as like a Nazi and praising Hitler, and he was the one like promoting Trump with his MAGA hat, he's the one that the Republican Party tweeted Kanye, Elon, Trump. Like two of those are already pretty much Nazis. See, the Nazis nowadays, they're not meeting in the forest to burn crosses dressed in white cone head and white blankets like ghosts. These neo-Nazis, this ideology, they're in the police department, they're in Congress because they wanna have their ethnic cleansing because they feel the minorities have taken over the country too much. We have to slow this down. You mean to tell us that by this certain year, at this rate, there are going to be no white people? Because that's what it is. These stats have came out in the past. White and white are not breeding because of all the mix here, because of the blacks and Latinos and all the other races here that they're slated. The original European whites were a dying breed. And they are not going to let that happen. Like I said, everyone has an opinion about why they're trying to take over this way, why they're trying to cancel all the agencies that we didn't even know made this country great. They want to monopolize everything. This is economics that I learned in school. The more companies sell an item, the better it is for the consumers because we have more choices. And that competition forces them to lower their prices. But when things start getting monopolized, when companies start to merge and they get huge, guess what? We have no other choice. We have no other option to turn to. We have to settle for this. We've seen that happen in sports. They do contracts with, only this company is showing the Dodger games or Laker games. That's why back in the early 2000s, Congress stopped AT&T and T-Mobile from merging because it was going to create too big of a company. And look what's happened now. There was like Alltel bought by Verizon. There was Singular and AT&T merged. Sprint got bought out So now you have just like three main ones, That's not good for the consumer. They're going to monopolize everything. Jeff Bezos, Zuckerberg, Musk, they're going to rule this country. And they don't care about the environment. They don't care about the poor. They don't care about minorities. They don't care about the people that need assistance. They don't care. It's whatever they want, whatever benefits their company, their interest. What's a sign of that we've already seen? Clear as day. They said they were going to cut grocery prices on day one. They were going to tackle prices of eggs, prices of gas on day one. Now, one thing has done about it. The bird flu, it's going worse. Egg prices have skyrocketed over 200% since October. What about the no tax on tips? They've already released their tax plan. Nothing about that. What about no tax on overtime for us? Hey, I would have loved that. Nothing on their tax plan. But there are tax cuts for the rich, for themselves. Why do you think they all lined up in the inauguration there? And you had big tech. Remember, crazy how times change, right? Trump was against big tech in his first term. He was against them monopolizing. He was against Jeff Bezos making his contract with the U.S. Postal Service, that now the U.S. Postal Service delivers on Sundays some of their Amazon products. Trump tried to stop that. Now they are funneled money into the Trump administration, into his inauguration. All right, thank you. Come on in. There's room for all the billionaires. I don't want to sound like just a negative Nancy when it comes to politics, but it's in Project 2025. There's a PDF on it, and there's a hidden video talking to the main guy, Russell Vought, about Project 2025 and how does he feel that Trump's distancing himself. They said, well, yeah, we understand he's doing that because, he got bad publicity, but we're not worried. We're so confident he's going to, go with our agenda. And if he's gone, everything that he's done, he's completing, he's fulfilling Project 2025. If you were to read that, there's so much of it. It looks like it was written by a extreme right-wing podcaster. Oh, the Democrats have always wanted to do this, but now we're going to make everything better by doing this. They pretend to give so much power back to the people. In reality, they're looking for their own interest. Project 2025, from what I read, I don't know how many pages I read. I wouldn't be able to tell you, but I read a good portion. It was literally a white man's wish list. That's what it was. They're talking about the land from Alaska that they couldn't get, that was agreed upon in 1971, that they still feel they want to get to that and they want to be able to. I was like, wait, this stuff doesn't even have to do with what's going on now. Like, they're throwing in everything and the kitchen sink. And it's unfolding right before our eyes. So those of us that were so adamant to stop Trump, to be against this administration. Oh, you have TDS. Oh, why do you hate him so much? Blah, blah, blah. Because we're seeing the bigger picture. We're doing the research. We're seeing. I'm not surprised. He's trying to overstep on environmental land. I'm not surprised they're cutting off. They've already fired park rangers to take care of wildlife. They don't care about the environment. It's been proven since the 50s that fossil fuels were weakening the ozone layer, that climate change was affecting climate change. They've known this. They're not going to get rich. They're not going to continue to make money if they fold to climate change. So their agenda is obviously to convince you that climate change is not real, to convince you that you need guns to be safe instead of less guns to be safe. So this is my 1-year anniversary rant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for hearing some of this. I look forward to the next part. So I can finish off here because there's just too much to talk about. Like, I will never end talking about this stuff. It's never ending, especially with so much information now that's happening. Now you have it's like there's two Trumps now, Trump and Musk. It's crazy. Seems like Musk is the worst one now. But anyways, thank you for listening to this narration of this year. I think we could all agree crazy stuff has been happening. We don't have to blame everybody. There was fires here. We didn't have to blame everybody that was a Democrat. Every Republican, damn Democrats. Damn females in the fire department and gay pilots crashing. I don't know. But stuff has been crazy, right? Why so many plane crashes? Like in runways, in the sky, near misses. What's going on? I don't know. It seems like everybody, either there's no one working in the airports or everybody's like drunk or something. I don't know what's going on. Prices are still insane. I didn't even touch about the immigration, but anyway. We're still waiting. We're going to continue to wait for America to be great. But if we are going into a dark time for this country, it is also because God is going to allow it. So that's why I kind of taking a step back from it, because the first and foremost, the thing that I could do is pray on it and accept the outcome. Accept it in the terms of like, God is going to console, God is going to help me, not the administration. So on that note, as a Christian, continue to pray. I continue to pray for the best of this country and for the best of everybody in this country, not just people that agree with me. So this is the last part of this podcast. Happy 1 year anniversary to me, right? Not really. I've had ideas. I was going to make phone calls to people, but every time I would sit down and try to do this and try to get it set up, I was like, I'm just going to call and surprise somebody and see if I could put them on. It didn't happen. I just already came to the acceptance and the realization that I'm not there to do this. I'm not either mentally apt to take on this, but I just wanted to come out here and say, like, man, I can't believe it's been 1 year. What I've done in this 1 year, I probably wanted to do it like in 3 months last year. Obviously, when this started, I didn't expect I was going to be a father for the third time. It seems like I am not apt to do this podcast, to take on this, to have a productive, ongoing channel. I've had the ideas in my head. I've wanted to do like a Monday and a Friday one. Monday to talk about the weekend, Friday, and just to go out there and talk about current events and make fun of current events, basically. But I haven't done that, and I've learned and accepted that I'm not able to do this podcast the way I wanted to do it. Out of all the ideas that I had, just have not been able to do it. The last little bit of time that I've had to be able to sit here and do this, and I've had plans, I had ideas. I was going to call people and say, hey, it's been 1 year, like, what do you want to talk about? There's so many, options. I wanted to go at it with the Cowboys fan. I wanted to talk about certain ideologies with this other person. And, it would have been fun, but it just, every time I sat down here to do something, I couldn't. And I lament in the sense that this could have came out better than what it did. I wanted to do a lot more. I think I showed maybe little flashes here and there of potential of what this could have been, but I just can't. And I haven't been able to. What I did in this year, I wanted to do it in the span of like 3 or 4 months. And I wanted to get to the point like a year in where I could have established episodes, like episodes worthy to look back on. Like if, he made an episode about this, last year. He talks about this that you might be interested in. It just didn't happen. I wanted to sit down and talk about behavior. I want to talk about like to young men, especially from our community, how it is, the transitioning of getting into high school, peer pressure, after high school, getting a job, how we have something that, you know, the rest of the world doesn't have in God, in prayer. There's just so many aspects that I wanted to touch on that not been able to. So I just pretty thought like burying this, you know, just putting a lid on it and maybe coming back to it if I ever do have the time and the place. I mean, I could do it here. I have a green screen in the back that I could change it to look like I'm somewhere else, but what's the point of putting that up? I didn't see a point in it. So I don't have the time to make this interesting or good enough for you, the listener. So I'm still not fully decided on putting a lid on this. I do take a little bit of pride that I was able to do some of it, and especially in our church or in our community. You know, probably one of the first ones to have something like this, even though others have had something similar. And, you know, there might be someone else will come along with fresh ideas, more prepared, a better setup, and they're going to be able to do what I wanted to and couldn't do. They're going to be able to have something more productive and more successful than this. I lament the lack of feedback, especially from closer friends. I would have thought for sure at least my closer friends would have been like, hey, that was a little bit weird that you said this, or that sounded off, or you should try saying this, or you should try doing that. I've gotten like feedback like from 2 people. The only reason I still kept doing this because I would get surprised by somebody telling me like, hey, I heard it, it's pretty good, you should do more, or when are you gonna do another one? And I'm like, what? Like, I can't stand listening to myself. When I edit this video, I can't stand it. And hearing that made me keep trying again. Hearing that made me, okay, maybe I could do something. Maybe let me just put some more effort on it. And this year, I just put more effort on doing, you know, putting together short reels on social media. Because I was like, there's so many points that when I do a long episode like this, that not everyone's going to hear it. And there's certain points that I want to convey, certain things I want to put out there that are important, that I think are important for you, for my community to hear. But it's going to get lost in 30-minute, 40-minute, or even an hour-long podcast episode. There's stuff that I said in the past videos. I wanted to do a compilation of some things. Like, I want to take like a victory lap 1 year into my anniversary and put compilation of things that I said that I was right on and things that came true. And because there's several things. But I felt and saw the danger of a Trump administration, and, you know, I'm not against all MAGA, but there are some crazies out there, man. There are some crazy radicalized people. If I told you the stuff that from my family has told me, you know, like, I'm not Christian because I vote a certain side. And it's like, there's separation between church and state. And my religion believes that. The Constitution of this country believes that. And that's what I'm sticking to. So it was fun. I don't know if I'll do this again in this way. I'm gonna try to, and I always like to end it with a recommendation of something that I've seen. Fly Me to the Moon. Who wouldn't want to see Scarlett Johansson all dolled up for most of the whole thing? And Channing Tatum. He acts like a different Channing Tatum. He's not like that funny guy. He's a more serious guy. It's kind of real life mixed in with some idea that happened when we went to the moon. But you could always appreciate the props, the cars, the hairdos from back then, the 60s and 70s. So it's pretty cool. It's funny. It's entertaining. I recommend it. Fly Me to the Moon, Channing Tatum and Scarlett Johansson. Other than that, The Handmaid's Tale, everybody would always talk about, well, a lot of more on the left, how the fascist signs they were showing was like the Handmaid's Tale. And yeah, in that show, they suspended the Constitution and they passed certain laws, and females weren't able to have jobs or bank accounts, and it just tumbling, getting crazier. But it's pretty graphic, dude. Like, I recommend it. Not if you're under 18. Probably don't recommend it. I recommend if you're over 18. But that's about it. I mean, it was fun doing this. Thanks for everybody that gave me a compliment that went out of their way to tell me something. I really appreciate it. It meant a lot. I didn't want to be like a typical YouTuber podcaster. Oh, click the link below. Like and share, please. It means it goes a long way because they get money off of that. I have to have a minimum of 1,000 followers. And my whole motive in the beginning was just to make a podcast more specifically aimed towards my community. So that was never. I mean, that could grow into the over 1,000. There's brothers and sisters that have pages of songs of them singing that they have a lot of followers and stuff. I don't know if they make any money off of it. It would have been cool to have, a few cents of revenue come in if I put an ad there. But I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to base it off information, facts. I wanted to have, I still want to be a source of truthful, factual information, a dependable source, a reliable source. And I think I might go into having my own webpage and writing articles on what's going on. Because I enjoy and I thrive on digging into stuff and seeing what's true and what's not. So that was it. Thanks again for everybody that was along this ride and that spent some minutes into listening to this. I didn't want to force myself onto people too much. I did ask a few people, well, did you hear this one? Most of the time it was no. So I would say if I ever do come back to a full-on podcast, I'm not going to get into it until I already have at least 3 episodes completed, edited, with people, with sit-downs, and ready to go. And that'll be the grand reopening of sorts. But God bless this country. God bless our troops. Keep the faith. Thank you all for joining on this little ride with me. Go Niners. We'll see you in the Super Bowl next year. Till next time. Peace out.